Hey, Phil, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, good morning, Brian. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and all your fans out there. I know that you have a large following, and at the same time, I admire the brand that you've built. And through my network, and it's a very tight network, we tend to watch and share some information, some laughs, and some serious conversations. So, Phil Smith lived in the Chicago area, but also lived all over the country. So, what's been great about that is learning about different types of business and how environments work and cultures work. Started as a developer of all things, and I started in elections and governmental consulting.
Exciting.
So yeah, it's and learned at a very young age. You never tell anybody uh, who your favorite is, so to speak, or
Yeah.
which party you prefer. I always say it's nonpartisan, because when I was working in my 20s in a government, uh, like a courthouse, the circuit clerk could be Democratic and the Republican could be the county clerk. So if you said I'm nonpartisan, I signed an NDA with my company. Since I'm in the election business, I'm not allowed to talk to it. They thought I was a genius in my 20s. And, as you did, created your own brand. But starting development, developed the first court system for the Midwest, which became a standard. I've been told by my peers today I'm a dinosaur when it comes to development, but they're still using a lot of my code that I developed back then, believe it or not, because the business hasn't changed much. The technology's gotten faster and better. And then rolled into a sales role and learned, how to be a consultative, trusted advisor from when you're young and you think you know it all and you're going to take over the world and you're going to be the number one guy, being transactional. So that's how I developed my career in the last 10 years. I've always stayed ahead of the curve with technology. So I've been involved with data, big data, low code, and security and DevOps.
Yeah. So you're still selling pretty technical stuff though, right?
Oh, very much so. Very much so, even more today because of, agile and digital and business transformation. And then you look at a lot of companies here in the Midwest. They're not like the Bay Area or New England. They're all legacy companies in most cases, right? So is McDonald's worried about the latest and greatest technology? Technically, no, but they have changed to learn that social media is very important to them as a company. So, you bring the value to McDonald's as they transition from just not being a hamburger and a, Happy Meal man or for your kids, but they also become social media company that's has to change and become an IT company, as we all know. What they say, data is the number one asset of a company, and every company is a technology company today.
Yeah. I'm not sure I buy into that data. I think what they think of as good data, I
Right,
agree with, but
right.
I think if you're able to make meaning out of that data.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, that's what Domino's has done, because I've worked at
Yeah.
Domino's in the past, and everybody thinks that Domino's is a company that provides pizza. It's way beyond that. They're a very technical company. They're very forward thinking, very open source. They jumped on open source and became a real technology company, and got into mobility, and that's really drove a lot of their sales, is becoming more of a mobile platform. So the college kids, down in Champaign, Illinois, can then a click and a point, their pizza's there in 30 minutes or less.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk to anybody anymore.
No,
Right.
no, isn't that right? Yeah. I think that's very important. That's what's lost in today's sales environment, though, Brian, is it's easier. I'm not a fan of texting. Social media is a necessary evil in a lot of ways. It has its positives and negatives.
Yeah.
But to get on Twitter and pound my chest and be a peacock doesn't really interest me. I think LinkedIn is a great platform. That's how I met you and what you've done. But I think there's also a happy medium, and 15,000 SaaS plus SaaS vendors out there, all calling on the same accounts. I was asked, who's your competition the other day, and I said, the true competition isn't who competes against me with my technology. It's the 15,000 other vendors that are going after the same budgetary dollar and the same resources that I need to get us going. So it's
It is
changed a lot.
crazy. Yeah, because we think of our competition as the people in the category or in the
Yeah,
quadrant, and the real competition is time, attention, energy, and trust.
yeah, I agree. And I think that's why it's important to have a good brand, that person sitting across the desk from you is getting ready to sign off on a proposal and is going to bet his career on you, that you put yourself in his place. And I've always felt that if I didn't believe in the technology, or if it's becoming older technology, or the management and high turnover, I've got to get out and move on. And so that's why I've been able to go and keep on going back into the companies over and over the years, because these customers do trust me. They realize I work as a trusted advisor, and I'm concerned about their success too.
Yeah, I always remember it. Chicago was a good territory, but it wasn't Silicon Valley. It wasn't Boston.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't even Atlanta or Dallas. But it was good,
Right,
but
right.
different.
Well, and it goes for, just not Chicago, the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at Minnesota, it's got, look at Minneapolis, how many Fortune 500 companies are up there, right? But your word is your contract here in the Midwest. It's the old, going back to the days of Ray Kroc, because I've worked with McDonald's, and until the $2 cup of coffee cost them $2 million, they had the most stringent. They didn't have very stringent contracts. Their agreement with Coca-Cola was by handshake with Ray Kroc. Now you go through their MSA. It's very, very detailed and intense because they got to protect themselves. So that's where it really, I felt it comes from, is loyalty in your word here in the Midwest. It's a real Midwest thing. And you bring that up because I've talked to quite a few folks that are trying to bring in new products or break into the Midwest, and they go, it's so difficult, I don't know how to do it. But it's really your reputation, your brand, and your word. And I've been here for a long time, pretty much my whole career. And if I would have burned a bridge or nuked a bridge in like an Abbott Laboratories, how am I going to be able to walk in the door again? So I think it's very important that you go in with an open mind, that the Midwest is a lot different if you're going to do business here.
Yeah. And what differentiates you as a rep? I'm sure you've worked with a lot of reps. You got a great
Sure.
resume. You
Well,
came
thank
highly
you.
recommended.
Well, thanks. I pay life forward. I think it has to do a lot. When there were newspapers, I delivered newspapers in the afternoon, the highly coveted paper route back in the day. I think it has to do a lot with how I was raised. My grandfather ran Northwestern's dental school when it was around, so he was highly visible in the education, higher ed community. My uncle was the CEO of AT&T until 1974, and he actually brought the first bag phone in Rochester. So I have a lineage here that I have to stick with. And I've seen these gentlemen that didn't pound their chest. They were very soft-spoken Norwegian guys that worked very, very hard. But like my uncle, his name was Håkon Ramnes, so they were all Norwegian names, but his middle initial was I, and I can't even pronounce his middle name, but he wanted everybody to call him Hi, because his whole company loved him. Everybody at AT&T loved him because you just say hi, and that took care of business. And he was very in tune with his employees. So I share that with you because I've learned at a young age to pay life forward, that don't have a column fodder, right?
Yeah.
If you can help somebody out, you can help a peer out, you can help a client out, that a good friend all of a sudden he loses his job. Phil, do you know anybody? Boom, let me get it started for you. And not look for, but at the same time, think in mind that if you do the right thing, the revenue will come. I'm not transactional. I'm that guy who builds the bigger opportunities and does the research. And I'll give you a case in point. I'm real big on the power of one. And the power of one is that one meeting that you said that one guy would say, I wouldn't waste my time. Nothing ever happens there. Or you go to an event, or you go to a summit, or whatever it may be. It may be a meetup, but you meet that one person, and that one person that you met, if you hadn't been there that day, that could change your life. And I did that with a group here in Chicago called Camp IT. And Camp IT is a summit and has been around for a long time. They've been doing their events online, or I'm sorry, in person up until the pandemic. And now they're online, and he's had to pivot as a business, and it's been successful for him. But I share that with you because if I hadn't gone to that one meeting, I wouldn't have met the CIO of Allstate. I wouldn't have met a lot of different folks. So it's, I have a different way and a different outlook at thinking. I'm strategic. I utilize my network. I try to open doors, like I said, for other folks. So I'm just, I'm not that cookie cutter that you're starting to see a lot of out there.
And what is working for you to get into these accounts? Because you're selling to technical people who aren't the best at communicating, feel like if they want something, they'll call you.
Right. I think it's this, is that I learned this from, I've had two rodeos in my life, I call it. So on my first my first marriage, my ex-wife ran a rodeo company with her family down in Texas. And I lived in Texas for 10 years. I'm a city boy, right? So I didn't know about cowboy boots and big belt buckles and rodeos and all this, but they had a very successful rodeo company that was actually sponsored by Anheuser-Busch. And one thing she taught me, and I learned from it, and I've used it to this day, is find something personal. Show some interest in another individual versus let me just talk to you about speeds, features, functionality, and do a show of throw up. It's, hey, hey, you live in Texas. Can you help me with this? And break down that barrier. Everybody knows it's business, but really make something personal. And I think that's been a very great learning lesson. It's like when I taught my little guy when he was 5 years old, he hated doing this, Brian. I said, when you meet someone new, I know you're only 5, you stick your hand out, you say your name and say, nice to meet you, and you look him in the eye. And he turned 21 a few years ago, and he goes, I want to tell you something, Dad. I go, what? He goes, I hated when you did that to me. Oh, I totally hated when you had me introduce myself to people like that. But now it pays off. People are like blown away that I can look him in the eye, that I don't look down like my other friends do. And now he's 25 years old and he's tearing up in Fort Worth real estate right now. He went into real estate out of college and he's just, real estate down there is just booming. But he says, I learned my people skills from you,
And that's it. And today, I mean, there's the digital handshake as well.
Right. When
you use your philosophy of pay it forward, like this, how did we meet, right?
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
I didn't pitch you. You didn't pitch me.
No, like I said earlier, is that I respect and admire the brand that you've built, because that wasn't easy work, and you put yourself out there, and now you have this huge following of some of the best sales and technology reps that you ever meet and business people in your life. So congratulations on that.
But have you been able to maintain the technical prowess? Because you sell some pretty deep stuff.
Yeah.
I know the DevOps space pretty well.
Well, here, I'll give you a case in point. Here's another great example. So about a few years ago, I was dealing with the big insurance company in Illinois and met with the CIO, and he says, oh, I love everything you're talking about. We need to get caught up. We need to work on our digital transformation, business transformation. What you're sharing with me is great, but you know what? You vendors come in here, you don't understand my business. I said, but we've hit some hot buttons. He goes, absolutely. He goes, but you don't have any subject matter expertise for my vertical being claims and claims processing. I said, okay, you're right. I said, but we're invited back in. He goes, oh, no doubt. It's April. We're going to, how summer works in technology and business. Everybody takes their vacations. And then August and September, things blossom again. So in the meantime, in that summer, Brian, I went and I got my life and health insurance license during that time. I took the initiative so I could learn more about it. I learned more about his business, but then I want to be able to talk and, not name drop, but share apples to apples. And I came back in and we whiteboarded out with my sales engineer, and he was blown away. He goes, how'd you learn all this? And I said, well, I got my life and health insurance license in P&C, because I believe if you're sharing with me today where the insurance industry is, and it's going to have to start catching up, because there were no Geico's 20 years ago or e-insurance. When I was 16, the Allstate guy showed up at my house, knocked on the door, signed me up. But now the 16-year-old has to pay for their car insurance, is going to go find it on their own, right? And he was blown away. And we won the deal because of that, because he understood if I was going to take that time and effort to understand his business, I was going to be a real asset to him along with the company to help with his business. So it was a nice deal.
Right. And I try and describe this as kind of the bridge between what you do and what they need. We talk about how great the product is and how great it will be once you get it and the outcome you'll get. But the person on the other end wants to hear it within the context of their world.
Correct.
They're not arguing with you. They're agreeing with you. It just puts on the list of great ideas.
Well, when I was younger in my first sales career, which, when you're young, you want to do the right job and you want to impress your boss and make your number and everything else. But it was always that, well, we're looking at the competition. And then, your first or second sales job, you feel the sweat start rolling down your back, right? Well, not anymore. It's like we're looking at the competition. I know about my competition. I learned about my competition. I don't believe in slinging mud, but I will share fact. And once they see you sweat, on competition, then they get concerned. But if you address it right at the, and I'd say I'd be surprised if you didn't, because the day of the one line $250,000 signature is long gone, right? Back in the day you could, but not anymore. Now it's a committee of 12 people. So you better have some pretty good emotional intelligence. You better not just focus on the champion or sponsor. You better focus on the developers, or the users are going to be using this, and get to know the whole team of 12 like I did at one account. Otherwise you're in trouble. So it's
And plus what competition means, because there's so many ways to skin the cat, especially in your space. You can write scripts, you can get open source, you
oh
can
yeah.
get consultants to do it, you can outsource it. There's a lot of ways to look at it as competition.
Well, and think of the word of open source. Everybody laughed at open source when it was first being talked about. Now it's like, okay, it's accepted, and even the financial communities that would never touch it in the past are looking at it. Look at the cloud. Whoever thought the cloud would be where it is today, and it's changed the way we do business. But it's like when I was representing a low code company in my first 2 months, I was asked to speak at a symposium, about 200 people. And I'm like, 2 months on board. Okay, I got this covered. Okay, cool. And I had a guy at the Q&A at the end. And I knew I had the audience, which is very cool, because the majority of the audience was not looking at their cell phone, because I did the research and the time and effort versus a show up and throw up and education. I really put together some helpful information. And one guy who rose his hand, he goes, I tried low code 10 years ago and it didn't work. I go, isn't that beautiful? He goes, what do you mean? I go, look at this. And I hold up a Palm Pilot. I go, do you ever have one of these? He goes, yeah, I did, but now I got my smartphone. I go, exactly. I go, times have changed. I go, T1 lines and all this technology and wireless didn't exist 10 years ago, and now it does. So now's the time for you guys to take a look at low code, because why? All companies want the A-level, A-type engineer. They want the best. They want the best sales guy. They want the best leadership. There's not enough to go around, right? So you've got to find other ways to accelerate your digital transformation and time to market and rapid deployment and all those other buzzwords that you use that actually really work. And take the, of the 3 of the 4 opportunities I closed in the last 15 months, they had already picked my other competitor. They had picked my competitor, and I was able to pull the rug out from underneath them, and we won, which is pretty cool stuff. That's not, that was so rewarding when, because you walk, it's like, well, you just the questions alone, you felt you were column fodder, but we switched that around. We were able to win the deals. So,
And how far had they gotten as far as the
one had already made the decision, but when he went in to get it approved, we worked with him in May, and then we didn't hear anything back from him until September. Went in for the approval, and the executive said, well, who else did you look at? He goes, well, he goes, no, go take the top 2. They went, they sign, it's what a lot of execs will do today is, they'll circle the magic quadrant and Gartner, and they'll go pick those top 2. And he brought us back in, and we found out what his true needs were and focused in on those needs, where my competition was talking about the latest things that were coming out in containers and microservices, which wasn't what they really needed. But they knew that their growth depended on making a change and making it right. And that'll go down the top 3 as one of the most rewarding wins I've ever had in my career.
So let's talk about that. What motivates you more? Is it that win or that avoidance of losing?
That's a great question, because one thing I've always said, and I really believe in mentoring junior reps or folks that are just coming on board, right? Call me anytime. How did you get to know all these people? And, how did you do this? And is it all about winning? I go, no, sometimes you got to go for the no, and a no is also winning, because then you're not wasting your company's time and resource time or financial dollars. Go for the no, that's a win too. So I think it's a combination of both, depending on the opportunity. If I have a chance, but
there's one that you can't go to sleep.
Yeah, I think it's winning the right opportunity and doing the right thing for the customer is really important to me.
Yeah. And when you
Really
lose,
important.
how do you feel?
I'm fortunate because my preparation, I'm out of the deal when I know I'm going to lose. Now, the one that hurt the most, there was one that, you're right. There's one that comes to mind.
Here we go.
It just happened. It just happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
We were, we were, we were told that we won, but it came down to the point of price. And our competition, I'd beat them 3 out of 4 times when they thought they had won. And my name got out there, and they realized, and they wanted this because they were also purchased by a large manufacturing company. This is a manufacturer, and they wanted to get in the door, and they dropped their price by half. And that's what we lost on. And the client said, instead of signing a 3-year deal with you, it's easier for me to cut my price in half and sign, which we think the competitor is fairly close, which they were at the time. That it's easier for us. No one's going to lose their job if we go in for 1 year. And I go, well, what you're doing is you're not making a commitment. A commitment's 3 years. A science experiment is 1. He goes, for our first year, because this is all new to us, and we're just getting off, we're automating spreadsheets. That kind of tells you how old the manufacturer was, automating spreadsheets. We'll take the chance for a year. So that one hurt. That one hurt a lot. But in my heart and in my mind, I knew that we did all the right things, but the price I didn't have control over. That was outside my swim lane. That was made the decision by the leadership.
Yeah.
So,
but you know, they're going to do that
though.
enough. It does hurt.
You know,
And
I mean, I put major hours in there. I mean, it was on a plane all the time. But you know what, though? I can always call them back up and walk back in the door. And who knows if they're going to knock on my door and go, you know, it's just, or if we see each other at an event. I mean, there are some wins there too, personally. So.
And what do you see most salespeople doing wrong today? Because when they come to you, what's the big thing that maybe they're not asking for it, but if you could just, and it might hurt to tell them.
There, a lot of folks are too one-sided.
Yeah.
Too one-sided. It's what's in it for me, and if there's nothing in it for me,
Not doing it.
you know, and it's like I can't tell you how many folks I've been references for over my lifetime, and you never hear from them ever again, right? And then all of a sudden it hits the fan, and then your
Then you hear
doorbell
from
or your
them.
phone rings. Like and then it's panic, right? But I think you got to have an open mind and get creative in today's world because it's changed so much. I miss the days of getting out there and meeting with folks. I think that's one of the biggest reasons most companies that are trying to bring in most new business are struggling right now, not for land and expand, but for truly growing new business in the last year because everybody's working out of their home. And unless it's mission critical, companies aren't willing to make that step unless it's really necessary. You know, and I think that you'll see a big change in the second half because I'm seeing that with some of my service partners that are seeing an uptick now on, you know, but the last year we was trying to just stay in business or what do we do? I had one company where for 2 weeks they focused, no one ever worked out of their home. 2 weeks was how do we get 500 people on Zoom, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, elaborate on your question a little bit more. We've become too transactional as a world. The management is looking at spreadsheets on a regular basis. Are you looking to build a business? Or are you looking to make your quarterly number? And the customers, most of the customers today, especially in the Fortune 1000, been burnt. They don't get burnt anymore. There's no such thing as shelfware like it used to be. Remember, Brian, all the shelfware?
I remember shelfware. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Or in some cases, you know, half-baked software. No, there's due diligence. There's money on the line. That's not going to happen anymore. And customers are very conscious. They're smart and they've got everything at their fingertips with the internet. They do their research. It's not the past.
It doesn't take any time anymore.
No,
right?
no. So they've done
Not
their
calling
work.
anybody. It's just like search, right?
So they'll on Glassdoor and they'll do research on Glassdoor and they'll go, why do you have so many negative remarks about you? You know, it sounds like you have a huge turnover, right? And it's like, whoa, okay, that's a first for me. So, you know.
But I think it trails back to your original point about paying it forward. The key part about paying it forward is you have to do it before you need it.
Thank you. Absolutely.
That's the difference.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Because everyone does it when they need it.
Right.
But
right.
having that deposit in all these bank accounts, then when you need it, they get it back. Because I've done the reference thing too. And it's like after 3 and I don't get anything in return, or I don't get
Yeah,
any
yeah,
help.
yeah, yeah. And I could, especially for some of what you've built, which is even more important because there's a huge trust factor for what you provide. Yeah, there's a lot of humor to it. There's a lot of laughter, and there's a tremendous amount of truth that you get through to folks. So you hit it right on the head. It's the due diligence of investing up front. That means learning about the company, reading the 401k or the 10Ks, excuse me, and 10Qs and all that, and doing your research beforehand, or like I did with the insurance example I gave you before, make the investment. One thing I think has been overkill though in today's world is I've taken every sales methodology known to man, right? All of them. And that's why I laugh about some of the stuff that you bring up. Now it's not medic anymore, it's metapic. We got to add a couple, another one in there. By the way, and I've been doing this long enough to know who's your economic buyer and champions. I get all that. Okay, cool. But all of a sudden you're writing a book and you're on Salesforce every day. And I understand it's a necessary evil, but
Yeah. Well, the problem is that all of it's good,
right,
but there's too much good and not enough execution,
right,
because you could read books about chess all day,
right, right.
but you learn by playing.
Well, right. Well, and I think that's where I miss the fact of meeting people in person, because the big two buzzwords today, or the buzz line, is emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
That's like the big book. Oh, how do I become emotionally intelligent? So I've been that way since I was a kid, knocking on people's doors and selling, subscriptions to newspapers and all that kind of stuff. That it doesn't start overnight. It's got to be in your DNA, and you got to be willing to do it. And I do believe in it, because you can, I walk in with a junior rep, and when I was doing some sales management, they go, how'd you see all that? I go, I just read the room. I could tell you who the technical guys, who were our friends, who weren't on our side. I go, God gave you 2 years to listen, and most people don't do that.
Right.
I said, when you're in sales, sit back, ask an open-ended question, and let them talk. And that's how with the PowerPoint presentations we do today. And I don't like death by PowerPoint. I have 4 or 5 slides that I utilize, and that's it. But get them talking first. Everybody wants to talk about themselves. Everybody wants to talk about their business first, right? Not how you're the leader in your industry. You have
yeah,
20
everyone wants
million
to hear
office.
that.
Yeah.
Look at our building.
Look at isn't that a pretty PowerPoint? And my marketing team did this. No, it's let's talk about what we can do for you. So.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, Phil, I really appreciate your time. This was a great conversation. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Sure. They can catch me on my LinkedIn profile, and I have a tie. It's not a clip-on in that picture, so I have my tie on. And I miss dressing up, by the way, so I dressed up for you today.
I appreciate
it. Then they can also contact me in my personal email at pasmithcr@gmail.com. So that's Smith, C as in cat, R as in Robert @gmail.com. But I'm humbled, honored. Thank you for looking at me as a professional. It's an asset to you and what you're doing. And I hope that we can meet in person in the near future when we can do that again.